I was somewhere between Gallup and nowhere when the car died. That's not an exaggeration. I checked the map when I pulled over, and the nearest named town in either direction was more than 40 miles of dark highway away. I'd been driving since noon, Albuquerque to California, a solo trip I'd done once before in daylight, and figured I could manage in the night stretch if I kept coffee going and windows down. What I hadn't accounted for was the alternator, which decided at 11:40 p.m. on a Wednesday that it had done enough. I rolled to the shoulder. The engine went quiet, and the headlights dimmed to nothing, and I was left with the specific silence of a desert highway at midnight, which is not actually silence at all, but a kind of dense, ambient nothing that has its own texture. Wind across flat scrubland, nothing else. I had one bar of signal that disappeared when I moved the phone 2 inches in any direction. I tried roadside assistance 4 times and watched it spin and fail. No emergency call went through either. Just dead air and the clicking of a cooling engine, and 40+ miles of dark highway in both directions with no visible light on the horizon. I got out. The desert at night has a quality you don't understand until you're alone in it with no artificial light. The sky is enormous, and the ground stretches in every direction without reference point, and it produces a feeling somewhere between awe and the specific mammalian dread of being very small in a space with no walls. I walked to the front of the car and propped the hood and looked at the engine like I knew what I was looking at, which I didn't. The alternator belt was visibly snapped. Nothing I could fix at the roadside at midnight. I was leaning against the bumper deciding whether to start walking when I heard something in the scrub. Off to the right of the road, the desert vegetation out there, low, dry scrub brush that grows 4 feet high and goes on for miles, was moving. Not from wind. The wind had dropped. Something moving through it in a direction parallel to the highway, moving fast. The speed was wrong for any 4-legged animal I could identify, and wrong for a person on foot. Like something covering ground at a rate that didn't match the body mass the sound implied. It stopped. I waited 30 seconds. Nothing. I went back to the car and locked myself in and tried every number in my phone on the off chance a call would push through. Nothing worked. I sat and looked at the dark scrub to the right and tried to control my breathing. Then the sound again. Closer. Much closer. 10 feet off the shoulder at most, moving fast alongside the car and stopping just past the passenger side. Nothing visible out the window, just dark. Then something hit the passenger door mirror. A single heavy impact that rocked it on its mount and cracked the glass across the middle. I didn't see what hit it, just the cracked mirror in the dark and 50 miles of desert. Then a voice from directly outside the passenger window said my name. I have thought about this moment every day for 2 years, and I still cannot fully explain what hearing your own name spoken in your own voice from outside a locked car in the middle of the New Mexico desert does to a person. Not just my name, the specific way I say it when I'm talking to myself. The cadence, the slight drop at the end. My voice, my exact voice, from outside the glass. I did not look at the window. I want to be clear that this was a decision, not a reflex. Something in me absorbed enough of the old stories without ever believing them to make a choice before my brain finished the thought. I faced forward and put my hands on the wheel and sat completely still. It said my name again. Then it said, in my mother's voice, my mother who has been dead for 6 years, "Come outside, it's cold." I turned the key. The engine turned over and caught on the second try. Battery still had enough charge. It was only the belt. I pulled onto the highway and pushed the accelerator down, and I did not look in the rearview mirror for a full 30 seconds. When I did look, something was standing in the road behind me in the wash of my rear lights. Upright, human silhouette at first glance, except the proportions were wrong in every direction. Torso too long, arms hanging well below the knees, the head carried too far forward on the neck, like the weight of it pulled the whole body forward. It was standing in the center of the road watching me drive away. Then it dropped to all fours and closed the distance between us at a speed I'm not going to try to quantify, because no number I give you will sound like anything other than a lie. It hit the back of the car. The impact came through the seat, through the steering wheel, the rear end snapping sideways before I corrected. The sound of it was not a glancing blow. It was a single, concentrated strike with something that had mass and intention behind it. I pushed the accelerator to the floor and held it, and the car found its speed and held it, and whatever was behind us did not hit us again. I drove 80 miles an hour for 20 minutes without touching the brake. I did not slow until I reached the lights of a truck stop outside a town whose name I looked up afterward and have never spoken aloud since. I sat in that parking lot under fluorescent lights for a long time before I could bring myself to get out. The rear bumper was caved in on the left side. Not scraped, caved inward, the plastic crushed by a single point of impact. The rear window had a crack running from the lower left corner upward. On the passenger door, just below the cracked mirror, 4 parallel marks were gouged into the paint, deep enough to show bare metal underneath. The spacing was too wide for a human hand. Too wide by several inches, and too clean for anything that was moving at that speed and striking a moving vehicle. I went inside and told the woman at the counter I'd hit a large animal on the highway. She looked at the damage through the glass, and then she looked at my face and she said, "Where were you coming from?" I told her the stretch of road, the approximate mile marker. She looked at me for a moment without changing her expression and said, "People don't stop on that road at night." I asked her why. She moved to the other end of the counter and started wiping it down and didn't answer. She didn't look at me again. I've read a great deal since that night, about what the Navajo call Yinaldlushi, the one who trots along on all fours. About what it means when one speaks your name in your own voice, uses the voice of someone you've lost to bring you outside. About the accounts from people who have driven that specific stretch of highway in New Mexico and stopped and wished they hadn't. About what some of those people found before they got away and what the others left behind. What I can't close the door on, the thing I return to every time I try to put it down and leave it, is my mother's voice. The warmth in it. The specific way she said it was cold. The slight worry underneath. Exactly the way she'd say it when I was a kid coming in from playing outside without a jacket. Whoever or whatever was standing in the dark outside that passenger window had heard her say those words once, at some point, and had stored them, had filed them away, had produced them at the exact moment they would be most effective. It had to have heard her from somewhere, which means it had been close enough to her, at some point in her life, to collect her voice. And that thought leads somewhere I can't follow for long without having to stop and breathe. More than that, I think about the patience of it. Something that waits on dark roads and spends years building a library of voices. The right tone, the right cadence, the exact inflection that will make a man unlock a car door. Every voice filed away for later. Every sound a tool. I think about how many voices it had already collected before it got to mine. And I think about the ones who didn't keep their hands on the wheel. The ones who heard something familiar in the dark and opened the door before they could stop themselves. The ones who didn't come back out of that desert.